please individually just introducing yourself. We begin.
My name is Mohammed Al Hajri. I'm from Kuwait, part of a company called Impulse International. We are owned 100% by National Technology Enterprises Company, which is owned by the Kuwait Investment Authority. Our mandate is to do tech transfer from all around the world to this region. And we recently started investing in the region, GCC region, since 2015. And we're going to continue to do so and expand our investment in this region.
Hello, my name is Alexandros Patarakis. I represent Lumia Capital. We're a San Francisco-based VC where we are looking for underdeveloped startup regions like Latin America. We have some investments in Europe, and recently, obviously, we've been investing in the Middle East. We are obviously an early stage funding arm, and obviously we believe that there is significant potential for growth in the region, and we will continue to invest.
Good afternoon. My name is Walid Mansour. I am a partner at Middle East Venture Partners. I'm EVP. We are an independent venture capital firm, a GPLP structure owned by its shareholders. We manage more than $120 million across multiple funds, and we focus on early stage technology investments. We've been around since 2009 and have invested in more than 30 tech companies in the Arab world, predominantly in the MENA region, in the Arab world, in most of the GCC, Levant, Egypt countries.
Hi, my name is Amir Farha. I'm the co-founder of Beko Capital. We're an investment company that focuses on early stage investments in the technology sector in the Middle East. So we focus on GCC, Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt as our core markets. We've made 15 investments over the past 2 years and have over $50 million in assets under management.
My name is Faris Ghandour. First of all, I'm sorry I'm seated. I have a recovering ankle. So I'm partner at Wamda Capital, and our GP has around 100 million under management, including a previous fund with great assets under management. Some include some names that are more familiar, like Souk.com, among others. And we're actively deploying capital in the GCC, specifically the UAE, Saudi, obviously the Levant, as well as Turkey.
Great, thank you. So I'd just like to begin with, I think all of you have talked a little bit about what sectors you invest in. Given that venture capital is quite early stage, and we asked the same question to the private equity guys with regards to what qualities you look for in companies, and it's more obvious for private equity because these are more mature companies. But I'd like to ask you, what are the particular qualities you look for, maybe in the business model or in the management that give you comfort?
Thank you. In our side, things are, I think, pretty straightforward. We are looking for a scalable business model. That is something that we want to see that can start local, but we can see it scale on a geography outside of its incubation country. We do look at the management team. We need to see that it has an element of diversity in order to manage it. And I think more importantly for us, we look at, in the case it has a partnership model, how that is defined, how is that defined to operate and execute. And obviously, we will complement the elements with our expertise and advisory network that we have in order to provide a more coherent view across the geographies that they would be looking to expand.
Sorry, and if possible, can you talk about some star in your portfolio or a company that you particularly like, if it's not confidential?
In our case, one example is OpenDNS, which obviously we've exited. It was purchased by Cisco, and this is typically the largest one. Since then, we've obviously invested in Careem in the region, something that people know. Also, Telly is another investment. It's a streaming company in the region. So these are the typical types. We'd look at fintech, and in certain cases, media entertainment are the ones that we're currently looking into.
Maybe I can add, we look at something called defensibility. So we look at businesses that can actually build moats around themselves to fend themselves from international competitors. We also really assess, I think fundamentally comes down to the team and their ability to execute and their domain expertise. And finally, something that's transformational. We look for someone that's actually solving an existing problem that's by a factor of, let's say, 10x, whether it's faster, cheaper, or more efficient. One of our most exciting investments is a company called Bayzat, which is in the healthcare space. They provide HR software that's very localized, as well as health insurance policies that can be managed through your mobile device. So that's the type of business that we're excited about.
We've invested in 18 companies out of this new fund. I do love them all dearly, I have to admit. And the reason for that is the reason we've invested in most of them is that we've taken a keen interest in the founders. So most of the businesses we've invested in are, let me put it this way. We've invested in businesses that at face value look like, you know, the value proposition might be weak, but the founder is super solid. We've also invested in businesses where, you know, the founder is a good founder, but the business model made a lot more sense. And what ends up kind of sticking over time is really how solid the founders are. And by that, I mean a well-rounded, just all-around good people. Just good people, big picture kind of people, domain experts, people who are, you know, most of the startups that are successful in the region and you know, contrary to popular belief, are 30 plus with previous corporate experience. You know, they know what they're doing. They've done it before. They're not college grads. Though, with all due respect to college grads, we have invested in many that are successful. But the typical profile is someone who's had some work before. So not to take up too much time, but we look at founders, and all our founders are great.
To probably build on that point, the average age of our entrepreneurs is 37 years old. Yeah. So I fully agree, and there's a reason behind it. In venture capital, you back teams at the beginning, so therefore it's better to have teams who have a certain business maturity or a certain maturity in order to build larger companies, right? So you don't want to stop at a founding team of 2, 3, 4 people. Eventually, you want to have a company that has 100 people, because again, Scale is important. Something I may mention is product market fit, or at least some indication that the product that they're building has actually a receptive market to it. There's one element that nobody actually controls, which is, I think, timing. Sometimes timing is not good. So if with time, you develop an ability to sense whether the timing of a specific product or business. But again, I mean, this is more of a subjective view.
If I may direct to Mohammed, is there something that you would not do as a VC? Is there something specific that you won't touch with the Wajpol?
We usually don't touch hardware, especially like microprocessor, mobiles, and because we're very active investors, no matter how much our stake is, but we're very active. So what we don't add value in terms of in the operation of the company, we just don't touch. So hardware, I think, is one of the main things that we don't touch. Streaming services, for example, music, videos, there's something also we don't do any. Whatever can add value in terms of government, changing the way government operate, because we've done numerous projects for the government of Kuwait on a yearly basis. So whatever technology that we can bring in, it's something that we take a good look at.
So what you're saying is you look at the impact of that.
Exactly. Financial return is not our priority. Nonetheless, we are here to sustain. We don't have LPs. Our only LP is, let's say the KIA. So we are looking for an impact, and I think it's time. This region is delivering, or gonna deliver very soon, and the likes of Kareem give us hope. I think things will happen very soon, And a lot of entrepreneurs are coming up, and with the support of entities and accelerators, I think things will happen.
If I may ask Amir, what is it that you wouldn't touch with the barge pole? Something that you would never do?
So definitely hardware. I think it's a very valid explanation by Mohammed. I think never touch. I think it's very difficult because with VC technology changes so quickly. So one day we may not touch something, but it might evolve in terms of technology. Today, I would say publishers, so content production, is something we shy away from. We don't think it scales as well as other business models. But so publishers is probably, or content publishers is probably something we don't invest in. And I guess e-commerce, direct e-commerce, where you actually house inventory and warehousing and logistics, that's something we don't look at either, because it's not as capital efficient as marketplaces. So.
Just, we were having a lively discussion backstage. I just want to pick up on that. The question is, how big is the venture capital industry here in the MENA region, both from the point of view of annual investment and assets under management? If I can just get your point of view, starting Alexandros, please.
I think I'll just play back the comment I made. You know, we were having this debate, and we were throwing around some numbers, but obviously the consensus that you could sense back there is we don't actually know how much it is on a level of accuracy that we'd be confident to share across. But what we do know is, you know, there is a significant amount that is going on the ground. You can estimate that on a ballpark figure about $100 million on an annual basis. That's something I think we'll pretty much agree on that. We don't know how much is already there. We haven't monetized it yet. But you can use that figure as something of a guideline, and I think what we're looking to do is get more of that into the ground. I mean, we think there is a lot more readily available capital that could go in, but it's not going, so I think we do think there's a lot of value, and we could possibly take that up to 150 and even 200 on an annual basis.
If I can jump, I think it's not how much money is available and how much money is deployed per year, but it's how much money is ready to commit on a yearly basis. I think there's a lot of money, and wanting to go into the VC game, let's say, is something a lot of family offices that I personally notice in, let's say, in Kuwait, but the know-how is not there. The VCs maybe are not, maybe we're not applying ourselves enough to attract these guys, but I think the appetite is there. A lot of people want to shift from maybe the real estate and diversify a little bit on the VC. It is happening. It is happening, and the investment and the appetite for the VC is happening, and it's increasing on a yearly basis. But I think the money to be poured into fund is there.
Yep.
So, I mean, from where we stand, we started in 2009-10 with a $10 million fund, and now we manage 120. We've deployed half of that, and we've attracted 60 in co-investment. So over that period of year, we deployed basically 120 million. And that is extremely tiny compared to the potential of the market. So whatever that number is, whatever we can come and all agree, the amount of allocation for venture capital in the Arab world specifically, and in Turkey, because Turkey venture capital has dried out actually, is extremely tiny compared to the potential by any benchmark you would want to have. So that's one. Second, in order to, our job, I mean, a big part of our job is obviously we need to understand how to invest and what to invest in, but we need to show returns. So we are at heart money managers. And like any asset manager, you have to show returns. So when you go fundraise and people ask you, where are your returns? I'm not sure, but I can speak for ourselves. We have only one fund that has showed returns, realized value. So, and that is a fund that started in 2010. So probably we're one of the oldest one, if not the oldest one in that sense. We can show something, but that is not enough. Family offices and have to make or institutions have at some point to either see returns or do a leap of faith into this industry. So we're working on it.
Patience also.
I want to add, I think, so one of the data points that we look at is deal flow, right? I think the capital is a function of what you can invest in, and typically venture capital firms, the benchmark is to invest in 1% of what you see, or less than 1%, right? If you take the deal flow, I think we did a study on our own deal flow. I'm sure the guys have can combine that amount of deal flow, but from our perspective, we saw in our first year in 2012, 120 opportunities, and this year we're seeing around 1,100, right? Which means we can do 10 investments, which means by default the market has grown exponentially, and now we can deploy large amounts of capital, which means that we've hit this tipping point, I think, as an industry, where the money is going to go, let's say, from 300 or let's say 500 million in assets as a sector to possibly 2 or 3 times that in a year or so, just because of the function of the quantity of opportunities that there are to invest.
Faris, can I just ask you, just on the same theme, the question is, where do you see the industry developing? Where is it going? I think picking up on what Amir was saying about deal flow, also which sectors. I think clearly technology is, e-commerce seems to be where all the action is. But also when it comes to some social areas, women entrepreneurship, impact investment, and Emiratization. If you can just touch on those themes as well, please.
So in terms of where we're going, I'm new to all this. I've really only been I've been with Wamda Capital for a year, and I've been investing with a predecessor fund for a couple of years. So, I think Walid and Amir have seen a lot more. But from what I could tell from the snapshot I see now, e-commerce is still big. I mean, e-commerce is massive. We're seeing growth numbers in e-commerce companies in Saudi and even in Egypt. I mean, can't really mention some numbers from our portfolio, but Cairo, for some of our portfolio, is now the second largest city in revenue, not just in volume, for massive companies. We're talking about, lots of money. So I think e-commerce is still going to be massive. I want to package marketplace under that. I know they're very different business models, but they're essentially the same kind of value proposition. So vertical specific type marketplaces rather than horizontal, although there's a lot of room for horizontal. Fintech is an area we are just so bullish on. I think there's the underbanked in the region are around 87%, so 13% banked. Of those, you have only 9% of total population and adult population in MENA have cards. So card penetration is really low. The opportunity in fintech is massive, and it's a global opportunity, but it's much more potent here because of the fact that you haven't had banking that really kind of targeted the underprivileged before, underbanked, let's say. So we continue to be on the lookout, active lookout for deal flow there. So I think those are the two areas. Obviously, media and new media is massive. I mean, there's amazing companies out there like Anghami, who MEVP have invested in from the start, and Kharabish, who we've invested in, who are doing just phenomenal. I mean, just on growth rates that you haven't seen globally. So that's something that we're bullish on. I don't know about hardware. We've invested in hardware before. Hardware would either be in Shenzhen or in the Valley, really, for us, or in New York. We've invested in Little Bits, and she's based out of New York, and she's doing amazing. In terms of, you asked me about impact. Was it impact investing? So it's a little bit tricky. We don't necessarily we don't have a sort of a veil in front of us when we're looking at the founders. So be it, is it a female founder, is it a male founder? We don't have a quota per se where we say we have to invest in X number of female founders. Having said that, if we were to retrospectively kind of look back at our portfolio, we have 40% of our portfolio are women founders. And of the ones that are really doing phenomenal, probably like 70% or 65% of them are women. So, and for that very reason, we don't want to change that. It's already working for us. We already, actively invest in, almost half our portfolio are women. So we don't do much of that, to be completely honest. And I don't think it's the right thing to do. Sort of selective pipeline building is just, it's just destructive.
Alexander,
why do you have to segregate between a man and a woman, right? Even if you're doing it favorably, you are, actively saying, I'm looking for women founders.
So no place for tokenism.
Sorry?
So no place for tokenism. That's what you're saying.
No place for?
Tokenism.
No.
Right. Okay, if I can go back to Alexandros, okay? There is e-commerce. All of you have lots of portfolio in e-commerce. Why is that such a large share? And why do we see very little of anything else in the VC portfolios in the region?
I don't know if you see a little of everything else. I'll leave that to someone else, but that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
They're the bigger companies.
We want to know what else is there, because what we get to see is the e-commerce.
Yes, I think from our perspective, one of the things that we've been looking at are marketplaces. I think there's a natural evolution on a global scale to evolve from a commerce-based ecosystem to a marketplace ecosystem. We've seen that these ecosystems can be a lot more disruptive. They can easily flex over into geographies. And in certain cases, we have seen that they can have a much longer-term sustainable model, providing they can get it right. So one of the things that we're looking at right now are marketplaces, and we do believe that in the region, we've got signals that on a GCC level, there are people who are thinking of putting together marketplaces, or some of them are already being incubated, which we think are going to be interesting for the future, and that's something we'd be looking out for.
I just want to add to that. I think these things happen in cycles, right? So we had a lot of a consumer sort of trend initially. When we started investing, most of us invested in consumer-facing businesses. I'm quite excited about the shift to enterprise, at least on a local side, where we're seeing a lot more people building software. I know that some of us have invested in those kind of businesses. I think that trend is only going to get better as more companies, and even with government sort of influence, start deploying localized technologies in the form of software to help improve and create more efficiencies, which is what we've invested in. Most recent investments have been SaaS-based businesses.
So do you see opportunities in healthcare or education or any other such physical asset-based organizations?
So I'm actually probably what Amir has explained is right. There's since we started, there's been some preferences due to the size of the venture capital industry and also what consumers or customers are picking up. So e-commerce, consumer internet, marketplaces, fintech are kind of the obvious. But now we're starting to enter into software. We've already did that, into software as a service for enterprise, Internet of Things, and I fundamentally believe that, and also healthcare. So the next wave of big industries that are going to be disruptive are going to be healthcare and education. So this region, the internet came to this region, and the first victim of it was telecom operators, then media businesses, then retail. I mean, e-commerce is basically living off the fact that retail distribution in places like Cairo or even Saudi Arabia is broken, so e-commerce is also a solution. From e-tail, now we're seeing banking and payments being disrupted and being changed, and so we've exposed to that sector, and we see phenomenal growth that just happened a couple of years ago. Healthcare and education are next, but they still need the elements of timing for them to be visible. So what in healthcare? Are you talking about medical devices? Are you talking about data? Are you talking about hospitals? It's just a very broad. We started venturing in it with a company called Al-Tubbi, which is an on-demand network business. And the more we venture into it, the more we see more opportunities opening up. It's just a timing issue, but it definitely is going to come.
So changing tack slightly, Mohammed, let me go back to you. Do you see banks as a partner to the VCs in the region?
You've heard me, that's why I asked this question. Yes, I do, but not directly, maybe participating probably in funds. We are partnering, maybe I shouldn't fully announce it, but we're partnering with one of the leading banks in Kuwait to establish a VC fund. It's one of a kind corporate VC fund. I think a lot of banks that we have spoken to see an opportunity in the VC space. The way how to deal with it, how to finance it is the tricky question. I don't think there is a bank who can write maybe a term sheet that we write for the VCs, and they don't want that kind of companies or assets under their balance sheet. So, but we know, we know that there is a great deal of opportunity that is in the making right now, and I'm very optimistic about this region, and I think the opportunities in Saudi Arabia And UAE and Kuwait, maybe I'll single them out, but there is a great opportunity from now until or for the next 5 years. Going back, I just want to touch base on the e-commerce. For financial return, I mean, you have to be exposed to e-commerce. Unfortunately, we don't want to invest in e-commerce directly, but in e-commerce enablers. There's a wave that's happening in the States now for e-commerce. Malls are not expanding anymore. Department stores are struggling. And this region depends a lot on the e-commerce. And so I think it's an international wave. We have to invest in them. There are certain industry or sectors that have fixed margins. So that's why I personally don't recommend investing in. I don't want to mention them, but there are a great deal of opportunities that's happening in this region.
So it's part of a mega trend. That's what you were saying.
It is international trend, yeah.
Okay. Alexandros, if I can come back to my banking question.
Yes.
Do you think there is place for a Silicon Valley Bank in the region?
That is a very interesting question. A lot are paying a lot of it. I mean, there's a lot in Silicon Valley who's paying attention to what's happening here. There's an ongoing discussion as to what could the next step be. Could we become a little more involved, hands-on on the ground? There's nothing definitive that we can discuss at this point, but the attention is here. The growth is here, and I'm seconding what he said. We can actually see that at a regional level, and again, I'm seconding the view that Kuwait and Saudi are the countries that we expect to be coming on board, and they should have a geographical impact. So I do believe that in the next 3 years, in that time space, you will see some sort of, I think, attention becoming more solid on the ground in the region to answer what you asked.
Okay, so I think we'll just conclude there. Just to sum up a few of the points, I think it was interesting to note it seems like a very positive story. Deal flow is increasing. I think that was a big takeaway. I think you mentioned a few hundred deals, now maybe as much as 1,000 deals. I think that speaks volumes about where the sector is going. Technology, e-commerce seems to be the biggest chunk, but there certainly is room for bricks and mortar companies as well in the real economy. And then from a human point of view, I thought it was very interesting. The average age was 37 years. It's a bit more than what you would think. And the fact that women founders are about, 40% of when they start, and a bigger chunk of the successful founders. I think that's a great empowering message. So with that, thank you very much for your insights and contribution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.